Support for our show comes from Blue Owl Capital. When we started this show, our goal wasn't just to spotlight the sport we love. It was to support the talent shaping the future of tennis. And Blue Owl Capital shares that same passion. They want to support the players who are redefining the game. You may have seen their logo during the Australian Open, as they sponsor some of the sport's most exciting players. And just like these athletes are making their mark on the game of tennis, Blue Owl is doing the same in investing. Through vision and discipline, Blue Owl is redefining alternatives for investors and for companies seeking capital solutions for long-term growth. Check out blueowl.com/investing to learn more. Hey everyone, welcome to Served, presented by our friends at Blue Owl Capital. Aussie Open Recap Edition, Mike. We can talk about all of the things.
Let's go.
And as much as I like your opinion, we should probably have someone who actually knows what they're talking about.
That'd be great.
Yeah, it'd be good. So why not bring in a former Aussie Open champion, friend of the show? Guess who it is, Mike?
Kim Clijsters?
It's Kim Clijsters.
Let's
It's
go.
our friend Kim Clijsters. She's back. Kim, you've been sick. You've been sick for weeks. What are you okay?
I mean, flu, and then I thought I was getting better and started playing tennis a little bit more in the freezing cold here. And I don't know, maybe that triggered my sinuses to not be fully recovered and triggered a little bit more. But I have to play in Dallas at the end of this week against Martina Hingis in a singles match. I said yes to a singles match.
Oh.
Yes. But I'm stuffy nose and
mistakes were made as singles. You can't say yes to full singles.
I know. I thought a 2-setter and then, a third set tiebreak is doable. But I just saw on the fact sheet or whatever it's called, there's 3 single sets, full sets.
Why would anyone do that? We can get that. We can get that fixed on this episode. If anyone from Dallas, where Kim is playing, is listening,
maybe it was wrong. I mean, maybe it was just a common. Maybe the chair umpire will tell me, super tiebreak in the third set. So.
Nobody wants to see 3 full sets of people who don't play tennis anymore. I'm just telling you, forever.
Not.
I'm sure this is going to be great. I'm sure it's going to be fantastic. I'm sure it's all going to go very well. But suspect decision making, I hope you get a little bit better. And as I'm kind of hearing you talk about it, I'm starting to put the pieces together. Hingis can still play. You can still play. You don't have as many ding dongs, the complete weirdos where like me, I can't play tennis anymore. You all are still good.
You're such an exaggerator. Of course you can still play.
I would never.
I can't wait for the day I get to play dingles against you. Backhand cross court. I want to go.
No, because you're gonna hit the ball perfect. I know this. No. I know this game. Listen, I have operated inside of my own average abilities for so long that I know how to be effective. You're going to hit the ball perfectly for 3 hours, and I'm going to hit this boring little chip that's just, you're going to get nothing out of it. You're going to hit it perfectly, and I'm just going to hit this lazy.
I'll get frustrated. That little chip,
I know.
That's what Justine used to do against me all the time.
Can't wait. Except I can't really go line with the back end like she could, but anyways. Kim, on the heels of Maddy Keys breaking through in Australia, and also there's this parallel storyline of it not happening for Alex Zverev after having put himself in position for so many times. I was kind of thinking back, and there was a significant gap from when you played Capriati in the 2001 French Open final. I don't remember the exact score. I remember it being one of those extended situations, 8-6, 9-7, something like that. And then to when you actually broke through, but you were one of the top 2 or 3 players in the world during that stretch. Can you relate to what you're seeing Maddy go through as far as her finally breaking through 10 years after she makes her first semifinal? And then also, what are your thoughts watching Zverev, where he's kind of keeps putting himself in position, but just doesn't quite get there? This was a lived experience for you until you kind of broke through and then ripped off a bunch of them.
Yeah, so the 2001 final at the French Open against Capriati, now I kind of look at it as I'm very happy I didn't win because I wasn't ready to win.
That doesn't make any sense, Kim. That's not a true thing.
I was too young. I was too, I wasn't ready for, it's true. It's true. But I needed to grow. Like I needed to get my mental side better. I was already lost like before I even stepped on court like, in those matches, right? So to see Maddie, and I was at the match when she lost to Sloane, and saw her right afterwards in the kind of the referees area, when you walk out of center court, and like both of them were in the room, and obviously Sloane's super happy, Maddie like crying and upset because of you know the loss too, but it's like not being able to hit the ball the way you want to hit on the biggest stage of the tournament. And I could relate so much to that. Like that was my biggest frustration out of everything. It's not so much the losing, it was the fact that I wasn't able to bring the level that I'd played so far in that tournament. And then it gets to you mentally a little bit after a while, right? Like you every press conference I have to answer the questions, from the media. Do you think you're good enough? I was number one at that point as well, or I became number one. Do you think you're worthy of being number one? Like how, I think at that time Venus and Serena were not playing many tournaments at all. Like they were just kind of picking their tournaments and probably winning most of them. But yeah, so I was number one. I played a lot of tournaments. Did reasonably well. I was consistent throughout it all. But so then you start to think and you try not to let it get to you, and you try to focus on improving the things that were struggling with mentally during those matches. And I couldn't, like, I hated seeing the trophy on the sideline. Like when I
You
was
noticed
playing,
it?
I saw it. I was like, oh my God, there it is. Like I can't, it's so close. I'm so close. And it would like paralyze my arm. Now I'm talking early, like, yeah, I felt so like, yeah, not ready for it in my head.
Really?
And I know that now. Like, and then as I got older, 2005, I was able to win my first one. And then you kind of just like, you're more mature. You're able to make decisions on the on the moment during the matches where you feel like you get a little bit more tight. You feel like you're getting nervous, and you're able to kind of adjust it. Like you can't practice these kind of situations, right? Like you can only get through them by experience, by putting yourself out there, of making more semifinals, finals of Grand Slams. And so to see Maddie do it and to see like the relief and the tears, and I got up, like I think I have like a coughing moment in the middle of the night, and I checked my phone to see the live score, and I was like, all right, I gotta go. It was like 4-3 in the first set or something. So I got up and I watched it in the middle of the night. It was incredible. I cried. Like, yeah, all the emotions, they come back. I'm so happy for her.
There's so many parts of what you just said that I can't really wrap my head around, because what you say in like how like kind of delicate and vulnerable your thought process was is not the way that I digested anything ever watching you. And I think the point of that is we view these players as these almost like superheroes of sport, but it's like all of these human stories, right? And these human vulnerabilities kind of just wrapped up in physical excellence. But the stories that they have could be the same story of anyone at any job who is nervous about progress and is scared of certain things. It's just wrapped up in body armor of some sort, for lack of a better word. Like and it's so funny to hear the way, and I had this conversation with Lindsay Davenport when she was on the show too. The stuff that stressed you out didn't stress that's not the stuff that ever stressed me out. I was more in I feel like I can relate to Zverev a little bit because he's so good, he's so proven. And also, it seems like there are a couple of players who are kind of just better, and the matchup isn't great for him. Like I'm watching him against Sinner, and I'm going, okay, you have to take Sinner's time away, but with your stroke production on the forehand side, you need a little bit more time. And I hear people commenting going, well, he needs to go step inside the court on his forehand. I'm like, no, he has it kind of closed off. It's this rounded out stroke. If he takes his own time away, his staple to his game, which is his consistency, movement, and being able to bring shots back to the backhand corner, kind of goes away. Is it possible for him to like make these physical adjustments, even if that's just not what his game is? Like I found myself in the position where I had to change everything against Roger. So not only was I having to try to beat, the guy who was at the time the best ever, but I was having to do it with like my B and C plan, the things that weren't comfortable, because what I did well kind of fell right into his pocket. Can you relate? Did you have someone like that where problem solving became difficult because what you did well was just matched by them? So then you had to adjust into a game that wasn't your favorite. And then also, oh, by the way, you had to execute it perfectly for hours at a time.
Yeah, definitely. Listen, I do feel like when I watched Zverev against Sinner, like there's a lot of moments where I'm like, come on, dude, like go for it. Like step in, like be in charge of the point. But I felt like for me, I think there were two players that definitely, I think early on in my career, Serena definitely was somebody that where I felt like, okay, I need to become faster. I need to become stronger. I need to make sure that my serve is better, that the consistency, my first serve percentage, like they make you, they hold a mirror up in front of you, right? Like if I want to be able to win a set, like in the beginning, I couldn't even win a set of Serena. And so you gradually, once you get, I got close, I got to a 7-5 against like that, it kind of builds your confidence a little bit because you're getting closer. And then Justine, I mean, by far the variety that she had in her game, especially I remember like the chip, slice of her return was something that was so hard for me after my serve to kind of, push back, move forward, step in. Like I just didn't have the touch that she had. I had a little bit more of the power and yeah. So I really had to learn. I had a wrist surgery that really helped me as well. Like I had to play one-handed backhands for a while I was training for 6 months. I was like practicing my slice, which helped me to feel more comfortable slicing, if I played Justine, like so little things like that happen throughout, that you don't think about, but they do make you feel like a more kind of complete player. I think those two, like Serena and Justine, definitely had like the biggest impact on me on how I had to adjust my game to try to be better.
And we'll be right back after this break. Support for our show comes from Blue Owl Capital. Hey, Mike, it was a pivotal moment in my career, a specific match where I knew I had to become a little bit more professional. I was a good player, but maybe didn't have it all figured out yet.
No, I don't. Which one?
I played Michael Chang in Roland Garros in the second round in 2001. I had 99 problems and cramps were one. Cramps in the fourth set. I realized, this is big boy tennis now. You got to play best of 5.
Wow.
Your body needs to be ready to go all the time. Michael was awesome, gracious at the handshake, told me what to do for the next 2 hours. And so, recovered, felt good, and then went out and lost the next round.
But what does any of that have to do with Blue Owl Capital?
Glad you asked, Mike. Glad you asked. Just like athletes are making their mark in the game of tennis, Blue Owl is doing the same thing in the investing landscape through vision and discipline. That's what I learned,
There
Mike.
it is.
That match. Blue Owl is redefining alternatives for investors and companies seeking private capital for long-term growth. So stay on the lookout for the Blue Owl logo and their sponsored players during the upcoming 2025 Grand Slams. And check out what they're all about at blueowl.com/investing. Talk about I guess as you're watching Maddie, because, and I'm curious to hear if there's something that comes to mind for you, but when you look back at her draw for this tournament, she goes through Collins, Rybakina, Svitolina, Iga, who was in like video game mode. She was doing the thing where she was beating people 2-1 and 1-0. When she gets rolling, it's like she puts more lopsided scores on anyone in the world, including Sabalenka, right? Go ahead.
What is that game called where you have that little bar and you have to stop the ball?
That's what I called Sinner the other day.
Oh, yeah.
I said he's like Pong.
That's when I watch like Iga. Like I feel like she's like on top of the baseline. It's like ding, ding, ding. It's like it's just like.
So she takes out Iga, and then she takes out the two-time defending champion Sabalenka, and I just can't get over the fact that there's probably this weird mental thing where I bet her and Sloane going into the U.S. Open final said, you know what, at the beginning of the tournament, and they love each other. They're dear friends. They'll be friends for the rest of their lives. But also, Maddie's going, okay, like Sloane wasn't even playing tennis 4 months ago. She was injured, and Sloane's going, oh, I get to play Madison for my first Grand Slam title, right? It's not as if there was Serena across the net. I almost feel like there's this own mental gymnastics set when you feel like you're, a favorite or you have a great chance versus Maddie's going through this row of people. She couldn't take a break. Like there was no match where she's like, oh, I'm the overwhelming favorite and it's not close. And then to just buckle down after however many episodes where you're building up this set of scar tissue mentally, to see her come through, it made me so happy because you mentioned the relief. And I said in our breakdown show, I said for the rest of her life, where it might have been what if, and what happened in that match against Sabalenka at the US Open, what happened in that match against Sloane at the US Open, what would have happened had I not gotten hurt against Paolini. And now forever, it's like she took a giant eraser to tennis past, and she'll be able to say forever, for 2 weeks, I went up against this draw and delivered when the chips were down. What emotions were you going through, and how much could you relate while watching her?
Yeah. I mean, I felt like I could relate a lot. And I also, for me, at my stage, like a few months after I won the US Open, I was so relieved that I was like, okay, I'm done. Like I did what I wanted to do. Like I can shut everybody up that complained and thought I could never do it. And then, I just wasn't mentally fully there. And then decided a few months, later that, I was going to, start a family. And Brian and I got married. And just to be in that kind of mindset for Maddie, I mean, what was it? 8 years after the US Open final? 7 years?
Yeah, so it was,
was it 2017,
7.5 years,
right?
And 10 years from her first semifinal in Australia.
It's incredible. And I know a couple of years ago that she, there was some doubt, maybe should I keep going? Should I, like there's a lot. And especially as a woman, like you want to, she just got married, I guess in November of last year. Do I set myself, okay, I'll go for one more year and then maybe start talking about maybe starting a family. It's kind of all those thoughts and emotions that you can think of. And, they're different now as you get older. They're different at this stage of her career where they become like, okay, now I'm thinking about, am I ending my career, or am I by putting, a goal or a timeline on my career where I'm going to push myself for another year or 2 years before, I start maybe a family or start, building a life at home. And for me, it was very much like that. Like I needed to set a goal so that I could keep like grinding and pushing through like the constant week in, week out battle with yourself. And I think Maddie, the relief is huge. And I'm curious to see if it will be more of a motivation, or if it will be like, all right, like, because it happens, you can be motivated in your head, but then physically you could have moments where you're like, oh, let me take a break for a little bit. And then it gets harder then to bring that back. I mean, she's had an incredible summer in Australia, right? Winning the lead up tournament as well. And so just to see, it was amazing. So exciting. And talked to Lindsay afterwards too, or like in text messages. And it's just fun, like amazing.
I left Lindsay a voicemail also. And I get like goosebumps talking about it because it really, like, it's Maddie's success, but it does take a village, right? I talked to Max Eisenbud afterwards, and he goes, I've literally been weeping, crying for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I was, aftermath, and he's like, he goes, I'm walking around in circles. He goes, for every player that goes through something, there's 10 or 15 people that care so hard.
I get chills too. It's like, that's the best part about playing and sports. And it's like, is having those kind of moments and the impact that it has on people around you who've been so close to you and may not be in the box during that final. But, like what, even in the third set, like I wrote to Lindsay, I said, Lindsay, I thought of you so many times in that third set because that's exactly what you would do in certain moments, right? Like, and it was, it takes an experience, an experienced player like Lindsay to have an impact, and it may not come out right at that moment, but to have it, many years later and still be that mentor and a friend. And it's so important for a player's development. And and the belief to believe that she can do it is, I'm just very proud of her.
And it seems to be, and you would know
and
this,
how she did it. Like,
I mean, she went through it. I said nothing given, everything earned. Like that draw is absurd. Going through the two best players of the post Serena generation, like clearly back to back tough three setters. Like this litmus test was written for Maddie Keys, right? She knows that she's better than most of the tour when she's on. It's those last 10 minutes of execution in a given, and it's just like you can. I just love the feeling of overcoming so many things by kind of acknowledging them. Like she said in her post press, she's like, I didn't know if I believed. Like, how do you know unless you do it? But like you just, in
I feel in that third set there was that point where she hit that backhand overhead and then that kind of like squash kind of forehand to like hit the winner. I felt like just to see her laugh after that point, whether it was at her husband or whoever it was, to her team, I felt like, all right, like she's actually relaxed. Like she's, like in the past, like we've seen her kind of get a little bit tenser and in big moments. And that's where I was like, oh, okay, let's go. Like this is, and she started like ripping her forehand even like more aggressively after that. So it's like, you talk about momentum changes. I feel like at that point was where she stepped in. She wouldn't like kind of wait for the shots. Like she was stepping in and I feel like a player like Maddie, when she's at her best, is almost the only type of player that is able to beat a Sabalenka at her best, right? Like you have to bring the same like weapons to her, because otherwise you're just going to be running from side to side and get overpowered. And she has that, and she's been able to do it now, in that match, for especially in the moments where it was the most needed. And in that at the end of that third set, she broke Sabalenka down.
Yeah, I was one of Bjorn Frantangelo, who's obviously Maddie's husband and coach. Which, by the way, how would you do if your husband coached you? Would that be a good dynamic?
I mean, they're married. How long? Like 3 months? 2 months?
I don't care how, but it doesn't matter. They've been together for like 8 years. Like
I don't know.
You would do well with that.
When Brian and I just like got married or were dating, and he would like tell me things, or he even told me once that he saw, like, I think it was before my quarterfinal at the US Open, he saw Venus warm up and it was hot, and he goes, Kim, if you can get her to a third set, like she's out of breath, like in the warm up. Like he said stuff like that, like little tips, and I was like, okay, I'll remember that. Like, but I think like now after how many years have we been married? 17 years, 15 years, I don't know, 16 years, I think. Maybe. I don't know.
So I'll tell you my story. Brooke and I were on vacation one time, and she played tennis for 4 minutes in her entire life. And I had gotten her she's like, oh, I might want to learn how to play. I was like, okay. So we get to wherever we were. I had this racket made up like specifically for her. And we got 5 minutes in, and I told her to like point at the ball to track it as it's coming, and gave her like very basic information. And she's like, well, why? You're talking to me like I'm a kid. I'm like, well, I mean, it's how I would tell any like beginner. Anyway, she throws a racket. She throws the racket I gave her, breaks it, and said, what the hell do you know about tennis anyways? So I don't know that would go as well. But one thing I don't want to get away from real quick is.
Oh, by the way.
Yeah.
I've been watching, what is it, Grace and Frankie?
Yeah.
Hilarious.
It's great. I know.
Hilarious. Like I'm tired, when I watch these games and I'm up and I'm like, all right, let's turn it on when I'm cooking, and I've been laughing. Hilarious. I
know. She's
great show.
She's so good. Even if she's not a great student, I'll tell you that much right now. She sucks as a. Maybe I suck as a coach. Maybe I don't know. Maybe we're proving two things at once.
Let's go with that.
Let's go with that. It's funny. So you mentioned like it can go either way for Maddie now, right? Is it like relief where you were happy taking a break from the game, right? It didn't seem like it might not have been your priority in that cycle, and as we're kind of moving around the sun. for a couple of rotations. And then I was texting with a friend who's really good friends with Bjorn, and he's in our Dingles game named Jared Hiltzik. And he's like, what happens now? And then I saw myself going, well, it could go either way. And then I stopped. I'm like, who fucking cares? Who cares? She did it. If she did it and like the shoulders get to a point of relief that it's hard to recommit, great. And if it's all of a sudden wind at your back, carefree, and she rips off another 2, great. Who fucking cares? And I had to catch myself. I'm like, why are we so stupid? Why can we not just enjoy something for more than like a day?
Isn't the media like, oh, so what's the next one you want to win? Or like, wouldn't you prefer to win this? Like, that's what I feel like every time you do a press conference and you're so happy because it's such like for a player, it's such a buildup to get to that moment and to finally be there that you want to stay in that moment for a little bit. And every press conference, it's like, with me, it was like, because I had only won my Grand Slams on hard courts. It was like, oh, so would you give up a clay court, Grand Slam, a French Open Slam? Would you give up one, like a US Open, to have a Wimbledon? I'm like, guys, like if like it doesn't, that's not how it works. Like it's I don't know, and you get pulled to like think into situations where you don't want to go at that time. And
by people who don't have any understanding of the reality of that question. By the way, like it's not like we're just, hey, we'll just throw that one over there and give me that. Like, what's the point? It's not. It's like it's like talking about the Easter Bunny. Like,
but it does interest me to see it because I felt a very strong kind of, all right, like done. Like, and Brian and I were together. Like, I was like, I'm so happy to be home and to kind of, like decorate my house and like cook for Brian and go to his basketball games. Like it's that part like joined too. And so to me, that just took over and it just became, and I'm also kind of a feeling, I go by like gut instinct. And if I wasn't, I couldn't force myself anymore to keep going and to push it and to,
See, it's weird. Like my points of stress never came from like press conferences. Like I didn't care. Like if someone asked me something, I'm like, okay, they're annoying, but like whatever. It's just part of the job. I was really good at, even if it wasn't perfect, I would show up the next day and put in, I'd be at the track at 6:30 a.m. That part of it was easy for me. It was the stressors of trying to problem solve for these people, knowing that they had more options that kept me up at night. Like I just couldn't, trying to convince yourself, like I had this unrealistic expectation that I should be beating these people when I just simply wasn't as good as these people, so it's like that dynamic. And so the only time I would get like really frustrated is imagine, and this is like for listeners, this is interesting because imagine that you have a global conference in whatever you do. Right. So you're anywhere around the world, the best of the best of the best of what you do are in one place. Right. And you're good at something, but all of a sudden you see people come and you're like, oh my gosh, I've never seen, this person, do this thing that well. And it's just amazing. And then imagine you winning that competition for 2 weeks and then losing to one person and people going, well, fuck, that's a failure. That's a weird place to be. And that's kind of where Zverev is now. Like we were talking about before on air, and I hate the position for him because he's professional. He's always fit. He does all the things that you would want or expect a top player to do. I think swing production isn't as easy for him as it is for some people. So that people don't understand, like that dictates the style of play. So you were saying, I wanted him to just go for it. I mean, he's hitting first serves big. He's hitting second serves big. How else can he go for it without compromising kind of the meat and potatoes of what makes him effective? If you put your coaching hat on for a second.
Yeah, no, it was when I'm watching it, like I'm like, come on, like step in, like don't wait for it now because you'll have to start over to build your point. Like it's just how I would, like how I react. Like I just naturally felt like that those thoughts were coming up for me. And as you were talking, like I think that it's really interesting for me to hear your thought process about kind of how you went about things, and because like for me, like I knew that I could beat all these players that I lost. Like I'd beaten them, 2 weeks before when it wasn't a Grand Slam. So it was more of a mental thing. And so I'm curious, like there's nothing that I love more about like getting to know players and like hearing their thoughts. Like that was something that for me was very important to learn to open up about like my fears on the court, like because it is kind of tennis. You're not supposed to look weak. You're supposed to, not show your negative emotions. You try to kind of cover up your at least for me that was the case, like how we were brought up kind of in the federation, and you weren't allowed to don't show negative emotions, and but they're in there, right? And so I'm curious, like a guy like Zverev right now, like you saw him, like there was that moment where I guess Sinner went over and kind of talked to him for a little bit, and like you could see how disappointed he was. It's a different, you see Sabalenka, she's laughing, she's kind of joking to her team. Then you see Zverev, like he's heartbroken, right? Like,
well, that's the difference between having won 4 and not having done it yet.
But where is it? I'm curious if you compare the two of us, like is his case more like yours, where he's just tennis wise? I don't know enough about like his
my gut
head to head.
Yeah, I mean, he's beaten all the players. It's just it's an extended format. It's in for the guys, it's very different. Like if you give me one of the great players and you give me a shorter sample size, that leads to a more of a toss up for a result, right? Like you give me Rafa 2 out of 3 versus Rafa 3 out of 5, I can tell you which one I'm taking as an option very quickly. So I think it's a little bit different, but he's pretty honest, and that almost makes me feel worse because he's just like, yeah, he goes, I serve better, but then once we're out of there, like he did everything else better, and he does everything else better. Is essentially what he said. So I'm just curious what you can do differently, like because everyone knows that he needs to be able to, and the things that make him great against a guy 20 in the world, where he serves big, he's consistent, he doesn't punch himself out, and he's really good in extended rallies, and he has one side that he can create pace off of. If someone 20 in the world who doesn't have the firepower of Sinner gets inside the court, if they attack the backhand side, he all of a sudden backs them up to where they're hitting a ball off their shoe tops, right? He has that capability off the backhand side, but the best players who can switch directions with that type of pace can choose the side, right? And he can't really back them up. And so it's just, for me, it's just this fascinating trade-off to see like what can he do? Can he, serve and volley more? He does it 0, and he has a big serve. Is there, do you serve 70% of your second serves to the forehand side to create that space on the deuce side and go the other way? I think all of those things are adjustments. I just don't like the lazy analysis of you have to hit your forehand bigger and you have to step inside the court on that side 6 feet, when I don't think that it's actually that possible based on the stroke production, right? Like that's like telling Lindsay Davenport to go big and heavy on her shots when her superpower is hitting the ball flat and through the court. Right? Like I don't think we go ahead.
But when you get put on, like under pressure and you feel like your opponent is literally on top of the baseline, pushing you side to side, okay, then you either say, well, I have no chance because it doesn't match up, or I'm going to try to do the same thing and step in a little bit closer so that I'm taking a little bit of time away from, like, I did you ever adjust your technique for an opponent?
Yeah, always. But my adjustments would be more along the lines of, like, I would like to see Zverev. His backhand is so world class and it's so technically sound. I'd like to see him crush and rush sometimes, right? Like get in, like hit and get in. I don't think he can make that decision in the flow of a point on the forehand side. I don't think that that's possible. I almost think he needs to choreograph some plays, right? Whether it's a serve and volley, second serve to the forehand side, right? Or whether basically, I just think they need to be looking for something else. So it's not, once it becomes predictable what he's doing, the best players in the world adjust, and then they can find, they can kind of poke that thing that's already cut, right? For me, it's more along the lines of switching the dynamic to where if he does get stuck in that pattern that's not good for him, it's the third time that they've seen it and not the 15th time that they've seen it already, to where it's predictable. If you know what's coming at your level, Kim, it's curtains for someone. If they don't have things that are big enough to bother you with their stock offering, right? And your job is to be so good that you force them into riskier behaviors, right? He seems like he can't get to the point where he takes on the riskier behaviors. And I just don't think it can exist easier, quicker on the forehand side. I think there are other ways to do it. I don't think it's taking your worst offering and making it riskier. I think he can take risks in other spots and then pick and choose his moments on the forehand a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, you're making my head spin. I would you like be open like to coach somebody like him and like to try and help him? Would that be like a
no?
I don't know.
I discussed my previous coaching experience with my wife like 15 minutes ago on this podcast. It didn't end well, and also like it's the same as you. Like I've actually reached out to you as I've been talking to other players and said, would you have any interest in coaching? And you said like I think we're in the same boat where time and geography matter more to us than anything else right now. So no. But I just watch and I'm a nerd and I'm like, how can it's just not as easy as do this. It's how do we, you have to base everything on what you can actually do with your game.
But do you think like, because I'm again, like I don't follow it as nearly as much as you do, especially on the men's side. But do you think, because he still has his dad, right?
I'm just going to say that sounds a little sexist, Kim. I don't need to.
No, like I don't know the team setups as much as so like maybe it would be good to get like a former player to be a little bit more involved, or I don't know. Like
I think he's tried that. With he had Ferrero before Alcaraz had Ferrero. And I want to say he's dabbled in that space before, and it seems like it always kind of ends with his brother and his father again.
But maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like men's tennis is, and I'm not saying it's becoming more like women's tennis, but it's the guys are hitting the ball so much harder. They're not standing, maybe Medvedev, yes, but like they're not standing that far behind the baseline anymore as they used to, like years ago when right? Or some do. But like when you get to these matches, like look at Novak, like the way that he builds his points, he hardly hits 2 or 3 shots in the same corner. He just like like the game is changing. I feel like for men, especially those guys like Alcaraz, Sinner. Whenever they had a short ball, they're going for their winners. And whereas I remember, when we were younger and it was kind of like, okay, I can step in, but I'm just going to kind of keep the rally going, wait for, the right shot. And whereas I feel like now these guys like Sinner and Alcaraz,
I think the only way that you can
so aggressive.
The only way, I think you have to be an absolute monster physically to cruise back. Now, Zverev does it. He doesn't get inside the court very often. Medvedev does it, but he has this ball flight where he can go 12 feet behind the baseline and still have net clearance of 3 inches and do it consistently. So like if you're playing against him, you're hitting up to him all the time, which is, it doesn't translate on TV at all. It's actually not dissimilar to Leighton back in the day, right? He didn't play as far back as Medvedev, but every time he hit a backhand, it didn't look big on TV, but I'm having to attack it from below my waist against the fastest human alive. Like it was this constant thing of like, shit, can I go now?
But he was also comfortable there, right?
Totally.
Like it's your comfort, especially in those moments where like somebody like Maddie, whose comfort is, let me try to whip my forehand, is different than an Iga her comfort is not to be the most aggressive player. She's turned into that, like she's becoming more aggressive and she's taking the ball earlier, but that's not her nature. Her comfort isn't there. And so to see like Maddie against Iga as well, like you can see that the when it gets really close like that, your nature, your instinct, like when mentally there's a lot of things to focus on and to worry about, you fall back into kind of old patterns and your safe space kind of. And
let's on the other side of the break, I also want to just run through just time. because we're seeing, especially on the men's side with Novak, I felt like he got to the place where he was playing as well as we expect him to, like vintage, turn back the clock a couple of years. But then whether it's the knee last year at the French, into Wimbledon, into the Olympics, and then not being able to kind of really be there, at the US Open and then coming back. So I want to get your take on kind of injuries, falling behind in that process to kind of get back to peak, and how realistic is that for someone who's going to be 38 by the time the next slam comes around, and as evidenced by him, tweeting out his MRI, has a tear. Anyways, more with Kim Clijsters after the break. This is Serve, presented by Blue Owl Capital. Support for our show comes from Blue Owl Capital. The Australian Open just finished up. That shouldn't be a surprise. We've been talking about it all episode. Clearly, we're invested, but we're highlighting it again because our sponsor, Blue Owl Capital, is also invested. They sponsored players at the Australian Open looking to make a real mark on the game of tennis, and will continue to do so at the upcoming 2025 Grand Slam tournaments. But before then, if you want to learn more, you can check them out at blueowl.com/investing. The company is making a strong push to change the investing game as well by redefining alternatives for investors and for companies seeking capital solutions for long-term growth. Once again, that's blueowl.com/investing to learn more about the company, their focus, and how they are redefining alternatives. Welcome back to Serve, the Aussie Open Recap Edition, presented by Blue Owl Capital. I used to come back from Australia, producer Mike. Most of the times it was just with a broken heart and psyche. You want to know the difference between Kim and I is, like, I came home with a broken heart. She came home with a broken trophy. You still, like, you never fixed your trophy. It's just broken and busted.
Yeah, I think it just broke with moving. Like, I have actually.
What do you mean
pieces
moving?
of it. From Belgium to the States.
Oh my God.
Here's this part.
What's it missing?
It's missing a
And then
bottom.
it's missing this.
Bottom.
Wait, how lazy are you? You can't take that to get fixed? They can't send you a new one? You can't, like, send Craig email? Your dog is pissed that you broke that trophy. Did you hear that?
Wait, did it not come in a Louis Vuitton travel bag like the new ones do?
No, it did not. Yeah, I don't know what to do. I don't know if there's glue for this, or if I need one of those. What do you call that?
Glue.
Like, in English.
Glue. Yeah, you should.
No,
here,
not glue.
tell you what.
A glue gun? A hot glue gun?
For metal, or like
Welding?
Welding. A welder.
Could you imagine
Do I need
the local
that?
trophy shop when she brings that in? They're like,
it's the glue. You know what I'm talking about? Welding? Yeah, that's it. That's what I meant.
No, seriously though, like, do you know this? Are you, like, handy, like, in the house?
No.
Oh,
No, that's what I have a
like, I don't
father-in-law
know. Like,
for.
look, I like the material. I don't know what it is.
That's a clean break. That ain't coming back without some serious. That takes a professional. I would like to see her take it into. I would like to see her just for our show.
yeah.
I would like to see her try to glue it now, and then in a month show us how it went. So the other thing I want to ask you about, getting back on top. Oh, wait a minute. You were saying you had like a so I have in our house. I forgot about it, but it's the thing that holds our, like, remotes. And it's the singles finals from, like, 2006 of the US Open. And I just kind of, like, forget about it. The kids throw it around the thing. And I think Kim and I don't know, like, we're the only people, maybe it's maybe we're disrespectful. I don't know what it is, but, like, my US Open trophy, we use it as, like, a doorstop. It doesn't see the light of day. It's, like, tucked underneath, like, a bunch of boxes that were moved forever ago. Didn't you tell me a story about, like, you had, like, a thing for dish soap, and someone came over and they didn't know you actually played tennis?
Yeah, one of Jada's friends, like, her mom, like, came in and she, like, wanted to use, like, the bathroom, and I had this little dish of when Leighton and we lost in the Wimbledon finals of mixed doubles, and, like, it was in a box, and I found it, like, a few months ago, and I was like, what should I do with this? Like, it's like, I can't, like, throw it out, or like, you can't give it to anybody. Like, what do I do with it? So I was like, I put it in the bathroom, and I put my soaps, like, on it. And so the mom, like, came up to me during one of Jada's basketball games. She was like, I gotta tell you, Jada let me in. Like, I wasn't home during the time, and Jada let me in to use the bathroom. And I wasn't sure, like, why there's like a Wimbledon kind of dish in your bathroom. And then she asked around, and she was like, "Oh, I'm so like, yeah."
Just a big fan of Wimbledon.
But it's like
Jada's
dark.
mom
Like, I
was
don't
one of the
clean
best
them
ever.
properly.
It's pretty fun. That's so funny. I love it. Something that I want your opinion on is it's this where I don't know. Novak and basically, I thought he was playing great in Australia. Obviously, the match against Alcaraz was great, but even the two leading into that, beating Mahac, who I think is will be a top 10 guy, 1-4 and 4, beating Lehechka, who I think will be a top 10 guy, 3-4 and 6, toughing Alcaraz out. Sets 3 and 4 of that were like vintage Novak from 2 years ago or before. But do you fear that we're entering this phase where you get to a certain age, and even if you're a superhero like Novak is and has been, and he's fought off time as well as anyone in tennis history, French last year, it's like knee, and then he manages it and somehow on one leg gets to the final of Wimbledon, wins the Olympics, which is just, I think you just got to have willpower. I think that gets used too much. I think that was like an example of that. Not playing much the rest of the year, coming in, and all of a sudden there's another tear where I think it's going to be, I'd be shocked if we saw him in the next couple of months. Talk about that process of not only dealing with injury, but also the process of being injured. And it doesn't just mean once that injury is healed, you can go play. You have to cycle up and get into shape, right? So talk about the process of kind of falling behind to your injuries, what that does to you mentally before it even affects you more physically.
Yeah, I think there's, at his stage in his career, it's almost like worth trying to push it a little bit, like he did here in Australia, right? Like
which he did, by the way, like a big
he
time.
He did, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, he definitely pushed it to a point where the tear probably got even worse and worse. And, I had it during, I think, my last Wimbledon. Like, I had a little stomach tear, and I tried to just adjust my toss, and I won, and then went for another MRI, like a little ultrasound down at the the doctors at Wimbledon there. They checked it again. The tear was a little bit bigger, and then you go back, and I won the second round, a little bit bigger. So the tape gets harder. Everything you try to deal with everything. You take a little bit more medication. The thing is with Novak, we've been so used to seeing him get through it all, with like the recovery things that he does, with his mental strength. Like it's almost like we just think it's normal that he will heal from this during the tournament, and then people question whether or not he's telling the truth when it is happening. And that's where I'm like, it is already annoying enough when you have a problem. Like, you don't want people to question whether you're being honest or not, right? Like, that's like it's annoying. Like, it's, and I do feel like with him, people are questioning a lot of it. Like, I remember people saying, like, I don't even know if he had his knee surgery, and I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I just fear that at that age, if you get in the cycle of rehab, do you get to the points where you can train enough to make your body strong enough? And at a certain point, like, your body, I mean, he's been literally covering ground, digging out of corners. He's like Gumby, as far as how he contorts and puts himself in positions. And it's so weird because we act surprised every time someone gets older. Right? Like, we're like, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's like, but it's like, it's gonna happen. I'm just curious.
But the process is also hard for him, right? I can imagine where you still have, I'm sure he has goals still to achieve.
He still has the ability, by the way.
Yeah. But mentally too, like, it's when you get through that process, okay, now he had to retire, and
it's so funny going into this tournament. They're like, well, can Novak can he still play with the top guys? And I'm sitting here going, okay, in my little like shame valley in my own brain, I'm going, oh, okay, so wait a minute. He made the finals of Wimbledon. He won the Olympics in the last 6 months. I go, so that was like my best year ever. I'm going like it's like the shadow that he's created for himself is so ridiculously dumb and full of accomplishments. It's like it's this weird conversation now that I didn't like it. Listen, you can disagree with someone, personally, and I went off on, so please watch back our quick served episodes from the last 2 weeks where we go into a lot more detail about a bunch of the different players. I know we focused on a couple of them here, but it's just like the booing someone when they're going off. Even if you don't know if they're really hurt, you don't boo. If you suspect they're not hurt, but there's a chance that they're telling the truth, you don't boo. Like, I just hated the fact that he's leaving the court to booze. And I understand he likes the friction. He invites the friction in. He thrives off of, and at times has created controversy because he operates well in that space. I get all that. But at a certain point, if you're a tennis fan, respect has to win out. I'm not telling you to cheer for someone that you don't want to cheer for. I'm saying there's a million miles between not being an out and out fan of someone and also booing someone who's one of the all-time greats when you don't know if you're going to see them again. I didn't like that. It made me feel icky on the inside. I didn't like that. And someone who you had a great relationship with the Australian crowd. They love you as much as they've ever loved anyone. And like, how did you feel when you saw that moment where he's?
I don't like it. I don't like it. It doesn't matter where it happens. Like, I don't like it. Like these are, players, and I even think Osaka, when she was it in the final of the lead up tournament, that she pulled out like after the first set. Like, there were some people, like, I think a lot of times people are more like, oh, I paid this money and I want to watch it, like, I want to watch, like, I think that also kind of creeps in there a little bit with Novak. I do think people like to go against it because they know they're going to get a reaction. And I feel,
totally,
I don't like it.
Which feeds the beast a lot of the times when Novak gets that reaction.
And which is why he's also posting his MRI results, right? Like, it's because he wants to shut everybody up and see, like, listen, this is, I'm not faking anything. Like,
I just didn't like to see it. It was no good.
But there's a lot has been happening. Like, there's, like, I even saw it like with David Goffin. Like, he's gotten like from like the French crowd. Like, people are like so much more outspoken, saying things about like his family, like really, really nasty. And there's.
I feel like the things that people have said online for the last 10 years, it's like slowly creeping into reality.
Into real life, people are like,
which is
things that they would type are now.
Yeah. And we're and listen, I get I paid for these. I paid for these seats. But to me, it's like, well, a rock band, if they're not feeling well, they play. I'm like, yeah, the results baked in. They could give you their worst show ever, and half the crowd's going to leave going, dude, they fucking rocked it. Yeah. Like, it's the results baked in, right? It's not as if Aerosmith is competing against the Beatles every night. Like, they're competing against their own shadow, and they'll have bad shows. That's not the same thing. Because you paid money, and I hate it for you, it sucks because you want the best ever, but does you spending money on someone who's carrying an injury into a match, is that supposed to guarantee someone's health? Like, there's like a divide between logic, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
But I do think a lot of people like kind of have that feeling like, oh, we didn't get our money's worth. And I know the tournaments try to, add a Legends doubles match or something to try and make up for.
That's not the solution. Yeah, that's not the solution.
A little bit of lost time. But
yeah,
it's
I don't know.
Unfortunate. I mean, listen, I believe that he wants to be out there with trying to compete for trophies, and
listen, like, nothing would please him more than to shut everyone up with a victory. Like, I promise you, he thrives on that. That's what he would. All he wanted to do is give that, like, I told you so thing at the end. I promise you. Like, and
he can still do it. I don't doubt that, but it's just
same. I do think his best chance is at Wimbledon now. So
tear.
Yeah. Mike, you had something?
Yeah. While I have you both here, Lerner Tien, 19 years old.
Yep.
Joao Fonseca, 18 years old. Both had breakout performances this year at the Australian Open. As a result, they're both now ranked in the top 100 for the first time. Tien is up 41 spots to 80. Fonseca 13 spots to 99. You both broke into the top 100 as teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
You were 18, Kim, you were 16.
12.
Yeah, right. What was that kind of moment in time like for you guys? You know, I can only imagine with social media now what a whirlwind it is for these young players, but what was that moment in time?
Learner Tien won. That's like your most recent version of Laver Cup. I don't know that I remember I know the general time. I don't know that I remember like the exact match where I broke the top 100. It was
in April.
So I won 2 tour events then.
Yeah, and then May you were already in the top 50.
So my story, and I'll get to Kim's, is I guarantee you she like beat someone who was like number 1 on earth or something. But mine was I won back-to-back tournament tours events, both as a wild card from outside the top 100. So I say this not as like being a dick. I'm just saying like breaking the top 100 was probably like the 5th most exciting thing that happened that month, because I got main draw French Open all of a sudden. I won 2 tour titles, 12 matches in 14 days. So that was more exciting to me than the math went away real quick. Like it was, I broke it. And now I think I ended that like top 50 in like a 12-day span. So I didn't sit with it. But what it does, just for listeners at home, top 100 means you're no longer having to play qualies for slams. You're getting into pretty much any 250 tour event that you want. You're this close to getting direct acceptance into like Miami, Indian Wells, all of the Masters events. And so you basically have the ability to play well and accumulate more points. You're not stuck in challengers anymore. So it's a big, big deal, and also you're going to get wildcards everywhere. Like Tien with the storyline off of Australia, every American tournament is going to want him in the event because it's additive to their event. And Fonseca is, he's got the hype mechanism that you see. That's a different, everyone expects him to be top 5 or top 10, which is its own little thing, right? Like it's no longer you beat a top player. It's like, oh, if he's ranked 20 a year from now, are people going, oh, why isn't it happening faster, even though it's happened really fast? Kim, do you remember kind of that first move at all?
No, I don't. Maybe I need Mike to
it was
be
Wimbledon.
my Google for a second.
Yeah.
Kim's was Wimbledon?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, you got...
I qualified. That's
Yeah.
right. I qualified.
You were barely in the top 200, and then you jumped up
Okay.
to 47.
I
by
didn't
the
know
end
the
of year.
rankings. So I qualified Wimbledon. That was 99.
Yeah.
Okay, 99. I qualified, and then I think I lost in the 4th round to Steffi.
Mm-hmm.
I beat
That's cool. That's a cool match to play, by the way.
Amanda Kutzer, who
That's
was
a
I
good
think 8 at the time. I played Jeanette Kruger. I forget that name. Karen Cross, and then Steffi. And that was before they had like the roofs, on the courts. So, and it rained, and I think I walked out, like I would wait on the bottom of the stairs for her to come out of the members' locker room. And like, she was like my childhood hero. Like,
I still can't even talk to her when I'm around her. Like I can't.
I saw her in
even look her in the
Wimbledon
eye. Like
and I like turned around. Like I couldn't even like.
I know.
I saw her walking towards me. I was like, oh my God, there's Steffi. And I turned and I was like looking at the store.
Yeah. I can't.
Yeah, but that was it. And I kind of like walked with her from from center court to the court 1 and 3 times, I think, or 4, like for 3 days that match. Like it took a long time. Didn't sleep at all. Was so excited. Didn't know what to do with my excitement. But yeah, just I guess too young which was good at the time too. Like to know the impact of it all, right? Like I just played tennis and I love playing tennis. And I remember playing Amanda Kutzer and she wasn't the hardest hitter, but I was like, oh, like I hit the ball harder than her. Like, how's this possible? She's number 8 in the world. Like those moments give you, like more confidence every time, right? They're like, okay, I got that. And that's the year when I think Jelena Dokic made it to the semis or quarters. Alexander Stevenson did. Petrova, I think, did. Like we all came out of qualies.
That's cool.
All of us. Yeah, so that was a
Kim,
fun year.
It's a obvious jump from the greats like Steffi Graf. Have you and Sophie been talking shit on text? Are you guys like
About you?
Yeah, just in general. Are you guys? What do you
Not
like?
about
Are you
you.
guys? Why are you guys texting each other?
Well, we kind of feel like there's maybe sometimes a little bit too much male energy on this podcast. Listen, Sophie needs.
I mean, you're the one who said you
some-
don't even watch men's tennis. I'm equal opportunity here.
I did not say that. I don't know the backgrounds of the teams and stuff about men's tennis. I do watch men's tennis. I love it, but yeah, no, we want to like have some like female kind of, like I think she feels comfortable asking me questions that she's scared to ask you guys. Like,
Well, she can't ask me because I don't know either.
Yeah, she can't ask Mike. 'Cause, I mean, so
I
basically,
know, but then
she wants some space to ask tennis questions, and you're like her safe space. When did this? What do you? What? Huh?
it's just women. Like we kind of started,
Well,
getting in touch. Like
listen,
yeah.
if you got here's I'll lay down the gauntlet.
There's so much to talk about, like that I
Great,
feel like
then
I
we'll
can't
give
talk
you-
about with you.
Great. Well, we'll give you a couple mics, and you guys can chat your little hearts
right.
out, and we'll put it
All
on our
right.
channel.
Let's do
All
it.
right,
Great.
do it.
Let's do that. Mike, can
I'm
Wish
you
putting
you
it
were
back in the
here.
bag now.
I can't wait for this. I can't wait for this. It's going to be fantastic. And they'll probably end up being great at it.
We've laughed a lot already on through our text
I just want to know
messages.
what they're talking about.
I guess we're going to find out.
I hope they're talking about you too.
They definitely are.
Not the band, you. Can you hit me with the information for the Asheville event again? That is this Sunday, February 2nd. Relief Fund. Obviously, we've seen what's going on in Los Angeles, and our hearts go out to everyone affected by the fires out there. And I also hope we don't forget about the other people who have been affected by natural disasters that happened before that, right? Too often we lose, just like we don't want to forget about the people that are involved in these fires 6 months from now or 8 months from now. We still want people coming back. Our friend Jim Curley, who was former tournament director of the U.S. Open, Asheville resident, has put together a really fun event that is going to benefit recovery efforts in Western North Carolina, in the mountains up there. That will help some people. Can you hit us with some information on that, Mike? And also, we will put the information in the show notes.
Yeah, it's Stars Serving Up Love. You can go to starsservinguplove.com. Tickets are on sale now. It's this coming Sunday, February 2nd at the Harrah's Cherokee Center in Asheville. You got Mr. Andy Roddick, Andre Agassi, Jess Pegula, Emma Navarro. I mean, Pete Wentz is going to be there. I mean, it's a good list of a good cast of characters.
I got a text from how cool tennis is, by the way. I got a text from pod listener who said, I was just listening to the podcast. He didn't say it like that. Andy Dalton, QB, Panthers,
there we
formerly
go.
of your Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, was listening to your pod. I heard about the charity match in Nashville. We're going to see if we can make it up. Is it doubles? Is it singles? Great thing you're doing. I said, yeah, man, I don't know. Like, Andre probably doesn't want to play singles. What can I do? He goes, if there's time, would love a chance to just meet everyone. I'm like, that's the coolest thing ever. He goes, I'm coming, I'm supporting. So thank you, Andy Dalton. Come join Andy Dalton. Be a fan of the game. Like he is, come check us out. Other exciting news, we announced the ITIA show, where we basically get to ask the experts all of the questions we have surrounding doping protocols. Why do we get different rulings for different people? Let's get into the weeds. Let's ask the questions and actually care about the answers before. Listen, I think I know what I think. And also, when given facts, the ability to actually change your mind about something is what we should do. So maybe we'll leave saying, you know what? I actually disagree with Sinner and Swiatek more. And maybe at the end of it, we go, okay, I understand the nuance of these situations a little bit more. When is that show out, Mike?
That one's going to be in a couple weeks. That one will be February. I'm sorry, I need to get the Tuesday right. February 18th.
February 18th.
Correct. And then next week, we have a good guest.
We just confirmed. We have Australian Open champion Madison Keys. And
Can I
also,
come on? I'm only joking.
yeah, sure, whatever, more the merrier.
I'm only joking.
But also kind of a little wrinkle that I think is very interesting. I'm fascinated by like coaching dynamics just in general. So we have Maddie, and then we have Bjorn Frantangelo, because she's Maddie Frantangelo. So we're going to talk to them, and they're like, oh, well, I think I want them on separately. Like, I think I want Maddie interview, Bjorn interview, but like not at the same time.
You have an overlaps though?
Well, I know
for
if I
few
get asked a
minutes,
question and it's maybe overlap, maybe we do like a newlywed game in the middle type thing. Open to suggestions, but super excited. And it's very nice of Maddie. I'm sure this is one of the most hectic weeks of her life post success, but they're going to be coming on. So that'll be out next Tuesday show.
Correct.
Is that right?
Next Tuesday show.
So we'll film it this week, and then it'll be out next Tuesday. I mean, I guess we're going to announce the release of the fucking text saga between Kim and Social Sophie at some point here.
Yeah. Have you guys thought of a name? Have you guys thought of a name?
I was about to say, is that what you're going to call it? The show?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wait, the text saga.
The text saga.
Hey, I just thought of something.
What
did you hear in stop? Did you hear in Sinner's interview that he thanked Darren and that he tried to convince him to coach another Australian Open, that he's done?
Yeah,
Did you hear that?
Darren announced before the Australian Open that he's going to coach. This is the last year.
Like on tour?
Retired, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's commentary or I'm sure hopefully Darren will listen and text because he listens to the show. But last year coaching, I think, is he said it ahead of time, which is, I mean, listen, he's done. You know Darren well from back in the Leighton days and when he was. But what a coach, what a person. Love Darren Cahill. I hope he sticks around in some capacity. And it kind of would be fitting if his last tournament was there in Australia. Obviously, being Australian, we didn't talk enough about Jannik Sinner, and it's just strange what you fear is that. We're trying to figure out the next person that's really going to play a part in beating Sinner on hard courts. And I fear that person may be Wada with that trial coming up in April. So TBD, obviously, I think we're going to learn a lot more about that. But Jannik Sinner, last question before we wrap this up, Kim, and you guys start having to write a show on your own since you have all the ideas. How would you coach against Sinner? Because I'm looking at it and going, yeah, you can't really go through him. He can now come in. He returns well. He serves well. He hits it bigger than most people on both sides, can switch directions on both sides. What do you do minus prayer?
He's mentally like very consistent, yeah. I don't know.
Great stuff. Thanks for listening to Served, everybody.
Your show's going to be electric.
Thanks, Kim. Great. That was great. Your pod with Sophie is going to be amazing. I can't wait to hear it. Good stuff. Thank you. Love you, Kim. Thanks to Blue Owl Capital for their support. Tennis is always evolving, and there are always those rising star players whose vision and discipline make them game-changing champions. The same goes for investing. The investment landscape is evolving, with alternatives becoming more mainstream, and Blue Owl is a leader, redefining the category, identifying new opportunities to deliver for investors. Blue Owl is redefining alternatives and sponsoring players redefining the game. So keep an eye out for their logo at upcoming 2025 Grand Slams. And in the meantime, learn what they're all about at blueowl.com/investing.